Welcome again to this broadcast. We are calling it His Story because our stories are the stories of God. And every one of us, we think we're just walking through life, but each one of us, all 8 billion of us, we are actually the story of God. And especially those that have given their lives to Jesus Christ, those that are actually walking in the ways of God, then we are living the story of God. And today I have somebody that is really amazing. My own relative, a father basically to me. I say a father because he's my father's brother, and he has raised me spiritually. He has raised me in real life, but he has also raised me spiritually. And one of my fondest memory growing up is a song he taught me when I was really young. I'm sure you can't even remember this. And I have taught it to my kids in Sunday school. And basically every child, even our homeschooling group, everybody who dares to, they know this song. And I love him and he loves me, his banner over me is love. And yeah, just being able to know a whole song and do it in action and everything. So, and that is, I believe, how you impact the next generation with what you do. I can't even remember you preaching to me one day. Like, I can't even remember, but I remember you standing for hours with my mother and your sisters, and all you talked about was God. And for me, it just fascinated to me. You could have been talking about your girlfriend or talking about God, and the passion and the excitement would have exactly been the same, if not more. So I'm really glad to share with him. We are starting a series of discipleship for Bible study as a missionary. But today I want to start with this story so that now when we start sharing actual experiences, actual things, then you can actually understand where this is coming. So welcome very much. I would like you to introduce yourself. Tell us, when were you born, if you would like to? Women are the ones who have problems with when they were born. When were you born? Where were you raised? How many were you? Which school did you go to? How was it growing up those days? Yeah, everything.
Wow. My name is Samuel Mwiti, Tuikiara, son of Tuikiara and Tumukeda.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm born and brought up in Kerua, Boroga, in the year 1961. I am, you should say, fifth born of my mother and eighth born. Is it eighth born? Yes. We are 17 children of 2 mothers. Yeah. And then my mother, we are 8. So I'm number 5 of the 8.
Of the 8, yeah.
So I grew up in the village, Boroga village. Actually, the earlier years we were in what we call Metayane. That is the
which I wanted to ask you because you were born post-colonial.
Yes.
Actually, right before colonial, just around that time.
Just before independence.
Yeah, before independence. Yeah.
And so that time, my parents were in the what the Kikuyus call Geshagi, the colonial villages where people were put to, because the people in Mount Kenya really became a mess to the Mzungu, so they had to be put together to be controlled. So we grew up in that kind of a village. This a colonial village.
Who built the houses? Yourselves?
I can't. That one I need to ask who did it, but the houses were. It was like, this was like not a slum per se, but there were houses were next to each other like that. So people would just stay, but they could go and farm somewhere. So, but when I went to school actually a little late because. So
you were born in the concentration camps?
Well, yes. Then when we became bigger, we moved to our grandfather's place.
Yeah, where you live.
Because my father was one of the people who were not favored by the government of the day. Yeah. Because he was in Mau Mau. Oh. So basically, my father didn't get land. Yeah. So it's our grandfather who gave us a place to stay. Yeah. So when I was in class 4, 1974 is when we moved to now where we live now, where my grandfather was. From now the Mita, because that time now that land has been adjudicated and given to some people.
The title did so not being given out.
We actually had to be evicted from there.
So even the Mitayane place was given.
It was given now
to other people.
To other people. So we were.
Is that what is called mitone now?
Mitone
is different. Oh, okay.
Hiyo inaitwa mutaeni.
Mutaeni. Okay, so.
So that is.
Sorry for the Kimeru.
Yeah. So now we moved to Boroga. That is my grandfather, next to Daragwen Independent Church. That's our home. So I went to Kirwa Primary School. In fact, I went when I was almost 10 years. Because I went in 1971. That is 10 years. Why
did you take that?
For some reason, I got late to go to school because I was small-bodied. So my father didn't know that I was getting old. In fact, even those who are younger than me went to school before. Like Kinya is younger by more than a year. She went to nursery. But me when now she went to class 1 is when I realized, why am I being left out?
At home, yeah.
So after, of course, I don't know whether that's when my father realized actually I'm ready for school. So I went to school.
Yeah.
So class 1 when I was 10 years. Strangely, I had not gone to nursery, but the first time I was number 1. So I did very well. Class 1, class 2, class 3, class 7. So class 7, I don't know what happened. Kirwa Primary School. Class 7, I didn't do very well. So I got strange. Now I was very bright, but when it came to the exam, I got 22 out of 36. So I couldn't get a good secondary school, so I had to repeat. So when I repeated because I felt I don't want to go to these poor schools.
Yeah.
There were the Arambe schools and the Arabian schools.
So
I didn't want to go to the Arambe school, so I repeated. So then year that followed, actually I did worse because I had gotten 21, 22. Because I.
Why was that?
I got sick just before the exam. Actually, I moved from hospital to the KCP. So I did worse. I lost 1 point.
Wow.
So I said, no, I will not go repeat again. So I wanted to go to Youth Polytechnic to do a course. I knew, of course, I'm a technical person.
Yeah.
But your father really persuaded me. I remember we stayed with him for a long time. He persuaded. I said, no, I don't want to do. I was already very old.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, because you went to school.
Because I'm already 18 years, and I'm going back to class 7. I didn't want to because I was feeling too old. Of course, I was fortunate. I was very small body. Nobody even thought I was that old. But finally, he persuaded me. I went back. So I got 32 marks out of 36.
So you repeated 3 times?
I repeated, yeah, I did.
You were in that class 3 times?
Yeah. CPE, I got 32. That's, of course, I played. Yeah, because out of 36, I had 2 A's and 1 B+.
Wow.
So I was called to Machakos Technical, where I did up to Form 4. Then from there, I went to KTTC, Standard Education, Technical Education. Then I went to teaching. My faith, to say how I got born again, I grew up, part of my life growing up was independent church. Because there's a time we stayed with my grandmother in Daragweni, and so she used to go to Daragweni Independent Church. So quite a bit of my Sunday school was.
And your mom as well?
No.
Okay.
There was a way we would stay with my grandfather. Yeah. My grandfather, I don't know, it was like mandatory. Like your father was the first one to stay with my grandfather. So when you grow to a certain level, you go back, another one will come. So during our time, me and Stephen, we stayed with our grandmother. So I can't remember the years, but we stayed there up to maybe around class 4, class 5.
So it's like actually for some years?
For some years, yes. Then that time I was in
So you're eating there and sleeping there and everything?
We were like her children. And then when you big enough, you are discharged, another,
and
because we were 2 mothers, so we come
the two children.
The two children from.
Is it like some mentorship or what?
I can't tell what was happening, but it was really very. But I don't know after us. Sort of. Others did, because the ones who were ahead of us stayed with our grandparents.
But the boys only?
No, even the girls. Even the girls. But it wasn't. But basically, anyway, maybe your father can tell better because he was older.
Yeah.
He can tell who stayed and who did stay. And but for us, we stayed with my stepbrother for some time. Then after that, when I went back, I went to Ebe Methodist Church. So I basically, Sunday school was Ebe and Daragwene. Then now with Methodist, there was something called catechism, which was very serious. You study, we did quite a bit of background of Christianity, church, and so basically some background of Bible was planted in that catechism. And then I really loved church. I was in leadership. In fact, every opportunity to lead, I was in front line. Remember, even in Ebe, at one time I was a youth leader. Briefly, of course, because that time I was not very big until we moved to Boroga. Boroga Methodist is when I was a youth leader now for a longer time. Through my
high school.
But I didn't get saved until Form 4. When I finished Form 4 in Machakos Technical, that time I would be in CU. So people would think, this person looks like around church. Of course, I had my own funny life. I remember my sister, especially Mama Kipsang, Kananu used to ask me, why are you not getting born again? So one day I told her, to be like who? And she looked, I think she was very courageous. She looked at me on the face and asked me, now that you know how you need to look, why don't you become that? So now I had no excuse of saying Christians are hypocrites.
Yeah, because you could become that Christian.
Now be that Christian that is not an hypocrite.
Thinking about, yes.
So actually, of course, it's like she removed any argument. And then I sincerely started now seeking God. Truly. I realized also, even my statement was hypocritical. So that when I started seeking God seriously. And I remember on 13th December 1983, that was the year I was out of school. I remember that day I decided to seek God. There is a scripture that says, you seek God with all of your heart, you'll find Him. And I knew the best way to seek Him is to pray and fast.
Oh, really?
So that day I prayed and fasted. I wasn't born again.
That's interesting.
And that day, from morning to evening, I didn't touch anything. I was just loitering. I didn't know what to, just loitering, not to be home because, in Meru, food, Meru and food, everywhere you go is food.
Every family
so I loitered around, went to the market, until evening. So nothing happened. At the end of the day, no answer, no mean. So but something was telling me.
Did you feel frustrated?
No, I wasn't feeling frustrated, but I knew God would speak somehow, but I didn't know how. I knew I have done what I needed to do. Nimetafuta Mungu, but He hasn't come. So that December, the end of the year, we used to do the youth the service, the eve of the New Year.
New Year Eve
used to be the service for the youth. And that I was the chairman of the youth then. So I planned the service very well and allocated people duties. And I even allocated a preacher. So I didn't have a role actually in that plan. So I made sure everybody.
You were the organizer.
Yeah, I organized. So those days are kuku na simu. So you have to walk into somebody's home.
And tell them you're there.
Tell them what you need to do. So I tell them. So the day before then, was it the day before, the same day, is when I got the message. The person who was supposed to give them the sermon was not there. And you not come. So he sent a message, Sita Patikana. Of course, the last minute, you don't know who do you give. I wasn't in a mood to give a sermon. But now, being the chairman, what do you do? The whole church is waiting.
You can't find somebody that quickly.
So I quickly went to the Bible and looked at Revelation 21 about the new heaven and new earth. Because to me, it was a new year. What better sermon than talking about new heaven and new earth? And I remember.
So how did you think of Revelation?
No, to me it was the book of the Bible.
No, I'm saying, for even is it a verse you had known before?
Yes, I had known the verse.
Yes.
The verse I knew that talked about new heaven, new things.
Yeah.
Because new year was new things. Yeah.
Yes.
So I was thinking new things is new heaven and new earth. So I remember I was challenging people. Is there anything new in the earth? You know, if you say you want to put on new clothes, this is. It may be new, but this is not the first time you put on something new.
Yeah.
If it is food, maybe you eat food that you have not eaten
before.
Is there anything that you eat that you have never eaten before? So there is nothing new. So even if the new, you say you are going to do something new,
not really
there is nothing new. So the best thing is to think about the new heaven and the new earth. I didn't know I was preaching to myself. And basically, even as I'm pushing, trying to explain, actually, it's speaking to me more than it's speaking to the people.
To them.
So basically, after finishing, I don't know even how I finished the sermon, I started asking myself, are you going to see the new heaven yourself? This new heaven you're talking about, you have emphasized and used so many scriptures to explain. Do you know it? And that's the time now some verses started praying. John 3:16. From God so loved the world that he gave his son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And the scriptures was pointing to me to having the new life. New life,
yes.
And so, those verses, the ones I learned from the catechism, started now playing.
Replaying, yes.
All I've seen and fallen short of glory of God. They said, actually, I've never had an experience with the Lord. I've never ever asked him into my
I don't know this.
Yes.
I'm
you know now you are the preacher. How you can't call an altar call.
And you can bring yourself.
So basically, I was convicted that I needed to get born again.
Yeah.
So in the morning, I was. We have the program Light of Passage, and my cousins Kadhambi, vijana wa Kadhambi, I'm the one who was with them.
Yeah.
So nilikuwa nimekuja tu kufanya sermon nirudi Trimeti. So I walked to Trimeti. So when I'm walking along the road, the mind is always. So by the time I got there and I realized no. I can't keep holding on this. So I go and, it's near Mount Kenya Forest. So I walked towards the forest. Just at the end of the forest, I stopped. I stood under a tree and prayed, asking God to come
into your life.
So that's how I got saved. So I came back. My auntie they are Catholics. They're not born again. So even telling them I'm born again was like a joke. I told them actually, but they looked at me and they wonder, what are you?
Yeah, that's zealous.
So it was actually nothing. It's them. Like, what have you?
Yeah. So what?
So I felt a lot of emptiness.
Yeah.
Now nobody seems to be celebrating with me when it's such
this big.
So actually I didn't even stay. So I stayed that day. The following day I had to walk back home. Because my sisters, two of my sisters, Kananu and Modoni, were at home. So I had to walk back. That's almost 10 kilometers.
No, it's more than.
Yeah, actually more than 10 kilometers. So I walked, came and told them, and they screamed. The whole village and they screamed because they had really prayed. They had really looked forward to. Yeah. So that's how basically I got born again.
Wow. So you preached to yourself.
And then it happened. It was actually in December, the last December before I joined college. So I was able to I joined college in March. Okay. No. May. It was May. So fortunately, I got saved at the right time.
Yes.
Because actually, I don't know how I would have lived alone. You're born again, you can share with nobody around me. My sisters, of course,
they go to school.
They went to school. So I went to college. Getting to college, actually the first term, that's when I met with Ken Roberts.
Who is Ken Roberts?
Ken Roberts was They are called journeymen. They are used to be Baptist student ministry, used to have work in US. The churches in US would have these people, young people who will give a year to God, a year or two. Then they will bring them to Kenya, and then they join the Baptist student ministry in Kenya as volunteers. So Ken Roberts and Kathy, there were two in KTTC. There was Ken Roberts and Kathy. There was Kathy Doverspike. They were there.
They were now based at
Kathy
the college.
was dealing with girls. Ken was dealing with boys. So I met Ken, and now he took me through discipleship. Basically, for 2 years I was with him. So that's how I got my discipleship, my background, and I was really fortunate to be rooted.
So basically, the big part of your story is discipleship. But let's go back to college. Was there a Christian Union?
Yes, there was Christian Union. There was Christian Union. Yes.
Yes.
There was Christian Union.
The overall
the whole church.
Yeah.
People, Christians would go to the Christian Union. But now Baptist student ministry was like, it was a group of people. They will identify students.
So it's just discipleship.
They pick them.
Yeah.
And then spend time with them. Like how we met with Ken, we were just. I was, it's unique to see a mzungu in a
college in Kenya.
So we were sitting down. We used to have a Jerusalem table. There's a table where Christians sit down.
Even us,
so I was seated there, and then Ken comes, walks into. He used to come for tea at 4, because that's the way he would meet with students. He just come. KTTC was. Visitors would come and they would take tea, there's no problem. So he just came and sat down there, took tea, and we started discussing him. The older student would start saying, and one of the ladies said, "Oh, those people are cults."
Oh.
Don't
get near them.
Watch those ones. So the first introduction was, be careful about them.
Be wary.
So that was the first time I saw them. It was actually maybe the first, second, third week in college.
Yeah.
Then another day, I can't remember after how long. So that day, like depending on when you leave class, there are sometimes you leave class early, sometimes late.
Yes.
But you would be from 4 to 6.
Yes.
So that day I came out of class late. So basically, when I got to the dining room, most of the people had gone.
Yes.
So I sat down, and then Ken came and sat down next. I don't know, even he maybe had a meeting, then he had just come. So he came and sat down and greeted me, talked with him. I felt this as a very warm friend. He looked genuine.
Doesn't look very cultic.
I didn't know what a cult meant, by the way. I was too young in the things of God.
Faith.
So to me, even if it was a cult, I was not aware.
Nice cult.
But I was warned.
Yes.
But still, I felt my spirit really. This guy is okay.
Yeah.
So we talked and we kind of bonded almost immediately. So he asked me about my room. I told him.
So they're about the same age with you guys because they're also students?
Yeah, basically, if he was older, actually could have been the same age because, me, I was old.
Oh,
I was around 24, 1984. I was about 23 years. Yes. So I wasn't very young, but he made him, I think, could have been around 25, 26.
Yeah.
So we talked, we became friends. He got my number, my office, my room number, and so he started coming to my room.
Yeah.
And that's how we started. So
not room for number, door number. I wanted to ask you if your room had telephones.
No, room number.
Door number.
Door number. So he came to my room. Of course, I told him, I didn't hide anything. Because of course, even the hunger that was in me was, I need help. I didn't know whether you give me the help, but somehow, so he came to the room. We started talking, and now we started meeting weekly. And then the rest is history.
Wow. So in a short while, I'll go into Ken and his discipleship because it shapes you a lot, basically the line that you take in life. Maybe not even intentionally, but you get into something very rare in the Christian world today, discipleship and missions. And we all think missions and discipleship is for a set, select people. You know, the way people say that praying and speaking in tongues is for some people, praying and fasting for some people. We group, and becoming a pastor is for some people. So people also group and say missions and discipleship. Kuna watu wameitwa. You know, me, I'm not called. So I'm going to sit pretty in church, go to church every Sunday, listen, be a good person, I'll not sin. But those ones of going to preach to people, telling people about God is not mine. There are people who are called. So first of all, I would want to know if that's true. And secondly, I mean biblically, and then secondly, what now makes you get into that call into full-time ministry now, based on what Ken introduces to you?
Well, one of the things Ken and the group, because it was a group actually, it was a group. Ken was the person who was in touch with me. There were many others, because there were those who were in Nairobi University, there were and we used to have even retreats with other groups. So basically what Ken taught me is to hear God, to communicate with God, and basically to respond to God. You know, when you become a friend with somebody, you are able to,
you can't just be speaking to them.
Like even when you go to college, you pick a friend, and if he is in sports, you get interested in sport or things like that. If he is into the, so the company you keep also influence you
a lot.
So also company of God, you know, company of Christ, you start having your quiet time, you start talking to him. There are so many things you get to hear him talk. So basically what I'm saying, like you're saying, there are people who are full-time. I don't think there is any Christian who is not full-time. Every Christian is full-time. It's only that God, in his unique way, he gives you a role to play. Some of us have to be teachers. Some of us have to be doctors. Some of us have to be engineers, because otherwise we will preach to the engineers. But there are those God also calls out of all those, because he has a special role. Even in the children of Israel. Even when he dealt with prophets and priests, there are some people who are given specific roles to pray. So even in our time, God gives people specific roles as they listen to him. So when God tells you, this is the way to go, you go. So it doesn't mean you are more special. Because now you have left, like me, I left teaching to go and preaching. It doesn't mean now I became more spiritual when I left. In fact, I tell people I was a better minister as a teacher than what we call full-time, because I was with students almost 24 hours. In Christian Union, when every time I'm in the office, students are there coming to ask questions, not necessarily academic, they were coming to ask the spiritual things. So many of them I learned to the Lord, in fact more than I have done out of the school. Discipleship was more effective because these are students who are my students. And so whatever I tell them is very powerful. So but a time came when God wanted me to do something else. So now I can't say I'm more full-time.
It's a path you took.
It's a path, yes.
And as a professional, like you say, when I look at myself as a professional, there was a time I was in, let me say in quotes, ashamed of the gospel of Christ, in the way that I didn't want to show so much that I'm saying, because you don't want to look weird. And then there's a time I sort of, you know, how do you say, like caterpillar, people to caterpillar to butterfly, you know. I just metamorphed, and then I don't care. I'm not going to be ashamed of the gospel of Christ. If I'm a CEO, I will be a CEO that is fully serving the Lord. And one of the transitions I actually realized is it's the people in my industry, crazy, mad, drunkards, you know, like whatever, too far away from God, especially those that knew Christ before and then sort of went off. There's a thing that fame and positions and money do to you. If they really need to align to God, I am really their go-to person. But now they have confidence in them in that way. Now, I may not be preaching on the streets, but I am really open to a certain line of people. That's number one. Number two, it also works in the other flip side, where we become Christians and we are professionals and we say, hey, it's not our job. And then even if somebody was dying and God could use you to help that person, you don't want to get, you can't pray for them. You know, I've met people in offices who will say, can I pray with you? You know, and that changes everything. Can I pray with you?
Or you're going to see a doctor, you are very unwell. Before he starts treating you, he tells you, can we pray?
Can we pray? Thank you.
That one, it solves even, you know that this doctor is going to take care of me.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying now. I think that for me, I really love that bit that we are all full-time. Because once we've received Christ, our first role would be to go out and make disciples. But now in what role that you're doing that? So there are some that will be called into missions, like you. When I say full-time,
actually all of us are called.
You are called into missions.
Let me give you an example.
I'm confusing
before you
myself,
finish
actually.
that,
Yes.
you remember this girl who helped the commander, Naaman. That girl, if she wasn't in that home, Naaman would not have gotten the
even
message.
The story would not have happened.
The story would not have happened. So we cannot put her in the class of preachers, but she was. If it was not for her, Naaman would not have known the prophet.
Yes.
And so what I'm saying, wherever we are, if we are faithful, God will use you. That's why the Bible says we are the salt of the earth, we are the light of the world. Sorry, Nimenkukata. But basically what I wanted to emphasize is there is nobody who is half-time and full-time.
So you see, actually the revelation I'm getting from this, even without you saying a lot, is that I'm looking at all of us in the because some doctors have to be there, some teachers have to be. I mean, who will teach our children? I mean, all professions have to be filled. But a shoe company, kuna watu lazima they'll have to make shoes. The people who make clothes, somebody will have to actually sew and textile that cloth. So definitely all professions have to be filled. How I look at you people that sort of we call full-time or pastors, they are the people supposed to equip us to actually be able to do the missions now in the areas that we are in. But now, unfortunately, how we have done in the church today is that we say, kina Mwiti, you know, that one is for those ones. And how many are you? Like you are 1 to 1 million, maybe like the one person we are saying full-time to the portions of Christians that are actually working is a very, very big problem. You cannot even handle that. So actually, I'm getting...
And we are not supposed to handle. We are not supposed to handle. We are supposed to equip.
Now you call. At what point does it come? In college? In teaching? Or how does it happen?
Well, I can't say it was not like Sanden. It was grandeur. It was like my desire to disciple started when I was in KTTC. And my first person to lead to the Lord is when I was in KTTC.
Oh, wow.
And then following up, then I went to Kitui School. I was really active. In fact, I almost ended up, I was not the CU patron, but I was actually, in reality I was. But the official CU patron was an elderly lady, so I was doing everything for her. So basically I was available for the boys because I was young also. Yes. So I didn't have much to do. So in fact, I remember there is a time even the master himself sent a message, came and told me, don't entertain boys in your house. Because my house was like they would just come and like fill my sitting room. Yes. And you know, some of them are from 5s, from 6s. I used to teach from 1 to from 4 because mental work was 4. But you find from 6s are all over there, from 5s, because they were the older ones. Then in my office, also I had an office. They were just, you know, like I was never alone. I was always with the students.
You know, you remember I came, I think, twice. There was always, students.
So, but I also would go to preach in St. Angela's, Mulango Girls. But I was feeling that I'm so tired that I can't go when I want. I was limited really. Yeah. So the only time I can do anything beyond school is during the holiday, which was sometimes very short. Yeah. Then of course you also know with teachers you don't totally close. Either sometimes you 1 week more in school.
And sometimes you also want to go home. Maybe,
you also want to correct. You know, if you are teaching, that's the time also to prepare your lessons and schemes. Yeah. So basically, I felt the academics were taking all my time. Yeah. But also, God was inside me, was pushing me to do more Christian work. Influence more young people. I felt I was limited now to Kitui. Yes. So that's when I started desiring to be free. of classes of the academics. And so by after 3 years, I really felt, no, I need to leave. So I tried to approach one with a youth with a mission, but their conditions were a Y1. Their conditions were very tough. They needed me to raise money to be able to join them. So I said, I'm quitting teaching. Who do I even go to ask money from? So I went to my church. That time I was a member of Parkland Baptist Church. So I went there. I wanted to join ministry. There was no opportunity. So I tried Methodist. Actually, I went to the conference office, went to see the bishop. And then the bishop told me, go home, go to your church and get a letter. Bring a letter. Then, of course, maybe him was thinking of being a reverend. So I went to my church, and the person who was the chairman refused to give me a letter. So basically, he told me directly, no letter. I said, why are you not giving me? That time I'm the youth chair. I said, why are you not giving me? He didn't even answer. He repeated, I will not give you a letter. So I discovered God actually is not sending me to church.
So God used him to cut you off.
But basically, and then I was still doing my quiet time, seeking God seriously. And I remember that time is when I got malaria for the first time. I was in Machakos for 4 years, and I was in Kitui for 3 years. For 7 years, I never had malaria. That was my first attack of malaria. It was very bad. In fact, at one time I thought I would die. And I was doing a quiet time on the book of Samuel. Even as I'm struggling, I'm still doing my quiet time. And I could remember the story of Samuel, how he was called. They say he was called, he went to Eli 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
And so I discovered, I went to church. I was actually, God is calling me here, and I'm going to answer there.
Other places.
So in other ones, it came clear that God wants me to respond to him, not to denominations, not to church. So I said, here I am. So the voice told me, resign. I don't know. Very clear. Well, I can't say it was audible, but something in my mind told me.
You know, when you
so I went,
know that you know.
So I went and resigned. And basically resigning not to go anywhere. To resign, to wait for God to...
Just because you've been told you're obeying.
So I resigned. The story is long. I had to take my own letter to the TSC because the headmaster refused to take. Because of course you are resigned through the headmaster, then you say. But he thought I was sick. He refused to send, so I had to take a copy. A carbon copy, you know, those days, a kuku and a computer, those things, you write with a carbon. So I took my copy to the TSC. That's how I quit teaching. That was the beginning of the year. No, I wrote the beginning of the year, so I gave them the notice up to April. So by May, I'm supposed to quit. So I gave them 3 months. So May, I moved. Actually, April, when we are crossing, I moved. And now I realized I can't carry my things home. I thought, as I was processing where to go, I thought, why not go to Isiolo? God will sort me out. Isiolo is not far from Meru. It's about 30 kilometers actually from my home. It's about 50 kilometers from Meru town, but from my home it's about 30 kilometers. So I knew there I'll not be far from home, but I'll not be home. Then I went to Isiolo. As I'm processing about going to Isiolo, I thought, I won't go to Isiolo just like that. I'll just go and buy a welding machine and maybe try some work, even as God sorts me out. So I went to Isiolo. I went to Nairobi, bought a welding machine,
and started in Isiolo.
And went to Isiolo.
Now, which year was that?
That was 1991.
So that's around the same time you're getting married?
I got married in 1990 December.
So you've gotten married the year before?
No, a month before.
Oh God!
It was December. It was actually December 29th.
Yes.
is when our marriage was, and I'm resigning around January, mid-January.
Wow.
Yeah.
Got a surprise for a bride. And even as we close, maybe you can tell us, Auntie Miriam is an amazing person, but how did she take then? She's a young girl, and she just got married. How did she take it?
Okay, of course, when I start sensing the call, I shared with her. And even before I resigned, I told her, and she said, if God has told you to resign, just go ahead.
Do it.
The advantage I had with her is, I can say she'd walked with the Lord longer than me, because she got saved when she was younger.
Really, yeah.
In fact, all her high school, she was born again. So she was also brought up by a very serious mother who knew the Lord and who would not question God. So I think she was brought up not to question what God says.
Yeah.
I thank God I'm not a manipulator, because I think I would really manipulate her badly. Yeah. But by God's grace, she didn't resist. The other person who never resisted is my mother, because I shared with her. My mother actually, strange enough, it's like she knew I was going to resign. So it's like, I never surprise my mother, because every time I'm going to give her information,
she already knows.
She's ahead.
Yeah.
Because I remember the shock I had is when my sister died, and I called her and she said, okay. It's like she had been told, shown long time.
Yeah, she knew.
So that's anyway, that's a story for another time.
Yeah.
So basically, I never got resistance from the people who mattered.
Yeah.
Of course, there are others who mattered, who are trouble, but by God's grace, we were able to
they were able to understand later.
Yes.
Okay, that's amazing. The call of God, actually not even just the call of God, making drastic life changes that mean no income usually are not pleasant. Whether it's somebody saying, I'm going to leave work and start business, even if the business might be bringing money, people don't take that easily. So I can imagine if you tell them, I am leaving work and I'm going to be a pastor. And that pastor, it's not like I'm working with the Methodist or the Baptist or whoever. There is no salary that will be coming at the end of the month.
No congregation.
No congregation. Short, exactly. Yes. Who are you?
No
who are you preaching to? So I think I look forward to hearing how, when you go to Isiolo, what happens, and how God leads you until where you are today, to the things that you're doing. And thank you so much for coming today. I'm looking forward to. I can't wait to hear about the rest of the story. And let's keep doing this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.